just try. Go out and try. Just because it is bad conditions outside, just because it is way too hot, because you don't think you're going to send today, just try. Because you're not going to send if you don't. When we did our first V13s in the Northeast, it was the middle of summer, it was humid, but we went out and tried, and we were like, oh, it goes. Like, we can do this. You're only going to get stronger. It's only going to push you mentally more. You're only going to learn more from it. There's nothing bad about going out and just trying, even when you don't think it's worth it.
How do you deal with those days when you try and you get your ass kicked and then you're optimistic and you come out and you try again and you get your ass kicked? You know, how do you keep getting your ass kicked and keep telling yourself that, oh, I'm just going to still show up and do my best?
The biggest thing in that regard is just seeing the big picture. Like with Lucid, I got my ass kicked for 3 seasons basically. And every time I would drive home and have 4 days of thinking about it, driving home, there was never a moment where I was like, I'm never going back. I'm not going back. The whole drive, I was like, how am I going to make it make sense to go back next year and try again? I think just being able to see the big picture, and if you're doing it for the right reasons, then I think getting your ass kicked is kind of fun in a way.
Austin Hoyt, welcome to the Testpiece podcast. Psyched to have you on, man.
Thanks. I'm psyched to be here. I'm psyched to get my pod on.
All right. Well, I just want to let everyone know, if you're listening and you're not on YouTube, I want to point out that you are doing this pod while on the road, and judging by your background, you seem to be in a beautiful Four Seasons hotel. And are you wearing a silk robe right now, Austin?
Yeah, I think you described it perfectly. Yeah, I'm in my king size bed in my Four Seasons hotel penthouse.
Luxurious. Yeah, that's it's a joke. You're actually just sitting in your truck in a desert, probably stealing Wi-Fi or just using your little phone hotspot. The glamorous life of young crusher.
Yeah, so glamorous, so enjoyable. I love it.
Yeah, dude, you're still in Bishop. And how long have you been there?
Think I've been here, I'm gonna get it wrong for sure, but I think I've been here for like maybe 2.5 weeks now, or maybe three, something like that, somewhere around there. Got here at the beginning of January, more or less.
I'm just curious when you say, I think I'm going to get this wrong. Is that because like time has just completely lost all meaning? Like you're just in the desert climbing rocks?
More or less, I mean, like, yeah, because every day all I do is wake up and like, what rock do I want to go climb today? What am I gonna go? Oh no, I'll go climb rocks today. Yeah, it's like the same every day.
I love scheduling stuff with you guys as climbers because it's not like when I look at my schedule, I'm like, okay, are you free like Monday or Tuesday? It's not how your guys' brain works because like for me, Saturday and Sunday are kind of like my family days, and those are quote unquote rest days from work. But for you guys, it's like, no, that's a good day because it's a rest day from climbing. It doesn't matter if it's Monday, Sunday, Friday, whatever it is. It's just like, no, it's a rest day. That sounds good, man.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, I wasn't sure if today would be a rest day. Honestly, today's probably not even gonna be a rest day, so I just kind of play it by ear at this point.
Hmm. Well, most of the stuff you're climbing on seems to be on the Grandpa Peabody, which is that big ass boulder with those classic lines like Lucid and the process and maybe some cool things to come. And that it's not really climbable until the sun goes down. It's actually like a pretty short window. Like when do you usually start climbing on Grandpa Peabody and how long do you get to climb on there for?
Yeah, so I think for Lucid, I always ended up doing the night sessions, or like right, like the sun used to usually goes down around 3:30, at least when I was trying it, and that's I would kind of hit it right at 3:30. But then recently I've been playing around in the process a little bit, and um I kind of feel like the morning sessions are better actually. Like get up there before noon and just kind of rage it until noon. It kind of gives you a little clock like timer, and it so you can't like just you can't force it. Kind of happens, and it feels more sticky in the sun. But no matter when you do it, you either have like 2 hours right in the morning or 2 hours right at night. It kind of seems like.
I'm curious when you have something longer like the process, like, do your hands numb out at the top? So like okay, so in the morning the rock should be colder. In the evening the rock should be warmer because it's baked in the sun all day, but the temps are colder outside, I feel like. So you know, I know when I was doing evolution, which is the like a similarly height block, one of the big issues was that I would numb out at the top, and I it was kind of freaky to, well, yeah, we all know numbing out not fun.
Yeah. No, I think on something like Lucid, it didn't really matter as much because you only need to like have feeling in your hands for like two moves, and you can kind of climb. Like it's kind of stupid to say, but you can kind of climb the slab numb if you need to. But on the process, I realized the night sessions I would numb out pretty hard as soon as I got to like the halfway mark, like the flake halfway, which is it's basically like a there's like a climb called social distortion. It goes halfway up, and that's like 12 or 13, and then from there to the top is another like hard boulder, and that's what the process is. It basically links the whole thing. So I just kept noticing every time I got to the halfway mark, it was like just total numb, and I would still do moves, but I couldn't like feel.
Hmm. I'm curious, did you flash social distortion?
Damn. Damn, no, not even close. I mean, it's insane. Like, so many people came through and flash it, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, it's time for me to try the process." And I think I've spent probably like, I mean, granted, it was always after trying Lucid, but I would like be like, "Okay, I guess I'll go try Social now." And I think I spent maybe 6 days just trying it after Lucid, never getting close. And then my first fresh session, I did it like fourth go.
Because yeah, like now you have it on lock, it seems like. But I, the reason why I asked is I was just talking to Kai Whaley, and he was saying how he really struggles with social distortion, which is like a infamously like crimpy thing. But then I said to Kai, I was like, I got bad news for you, dude, because I'm pretty sure everyone who's done the process has flashed social
Yeah,
distortion. Like I don't actually, I don't know if Daniel Woods did, but I feel like that's different because it wasn't like it was still project. I don't know, but
just like
every
style too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, hmm. uh, I think it's funny how you're like, oh, I've been playing around the process a little bit. I know you're locked in, dude. Don't act like you're not psyched and about to do it.
A little bit, a little locked in, tiny bit.
Whenever I do these pods with you guys, I mean, there's no way around it where like you know, there's always like a big send on the horizon, right? And so it's like, oh well, Austin, I want to talk to you because of your amazing session on Lucid, or you know, ticking off Lucid Dreaming, doing that big FA backies for the or you know for the Northeast first V15, and it's like, well, should I wait until you do the process? Like, because you never know if it's going to happen. I mean, it looks imminent, but I don't know,
You
like,
never, no, I agree.
and then it'll be something else, dude. You'll be like, oh well, now I'm about to do the to do Devo or something, you know?
Well, I like, I fully agree because I've been like feeling good, for lack of a better word, on the process for the last, well, every session. I mean, literally, my first time sticking the half, like sending social distortion, that first half, I got to the last move of the process and jumped for the lip and touched it. Like it was a scared attempt, but then like yeah. So I've been basically getting to the same spot every time, and I feel like you can view it like two different ways. You can be like, oh, that's like awesome, I'm really close, or you can be like, okay, I need to learn something else because clearly I obviously can get there every try, but something's holding me back from doing it.
And you've done that move on top rope, correct?
Yeah, I did the link from the flake to the top on top rope 2 times in a row, a few sessions ago, but just taking the rope off for some, I think I'm gonna resort back to trying that link next session because I think doing it with the rope off would be like a huge mental boost. I'm one for like I like doing good links. It just helps me mentally, you know?
We have a lot of experience with projecting, so
Yeah.
seems like you trust your instinct. Okay, I'm just gonna finish my little intro for you. I already got sucked into the whole of Bishop of hard climbing and psych, of course. Um, okay, Austin, your name has come up on the pod many times over the years, but I finally got to meet you out in Bishop during this 2.5 week trip, or however long you want to call it. And I knew that serendipity of getting to meet you just meant that really wanted you on the pod, man. And it was good timing because you had just sent Lucid Dreaming, which is the hard test piece in Bishop. And you also FA'd the first V15 in the Northeast not too long ago. Congrats on both of those. And
Thank you.
I really liked the video you did on Big Bad Wolf, which is that V15 FA. So I think most people listening will probably already know about your YouTube channel, but just put out that name, and also if you go there, go check out the V17 Project video too, because I feel like between watching the V15 FA of Big Bad Wolf and the V17, like I don't know, I got like a good understanding of that boulder and your process.
For sure, yeah. No, if you want to check out the videos, you can look at Climb V's on YouTube. Climb VEEZ. I'm working on a little like two-part Lucid, like I'm calling it Keep Dreaming, little two-part series for Lucid. I think that'll be. I'm not even gonna say a date, but I'm working on it. I'm getting there. Um, yeah, I just try to film as much as I can and push it out there. You know, a lot of Northeast stuff, but yeah,
Yeah, this year it seems like setting lucid dreaming is kind of a common thing, despite it being an unbelievably hard test piece block. And we'll talk more about that clearly, of course. But one of the reasons why I just thought your send was special, and honestly, I think this was how you first came up on the pod. Me and Timmy were talking about is you did the crux move. Actually, I always hesitate to say the crux move because I like it's not me on it, and everyone has different crux. But there's an iconic move from the undercling, right hand undercling, left hand micro pinch, and your feet cut to go to a good crimp. And the way you did it is you 1-2'd where you did that same move, but then you pulled through with your left hand after sticking that right hand crimp to grab another hold, a jug, and I just was blown away by that, man. Uh, actually, yeah. Am I describing that right? Is that how that move ended up going for you?
yeah. No, that's fully how I did it. I went back and forth a bunch of times, and I was like, should I do it the real way? Or not the real way? Should I do it the non-double clutch way? Should I do? But I ended up settling on the double clutch for sure, and I mean, it worked out, so I'm happy.
Yeah. Okay. I really do want to dive into that later because the reason why it came up to me, or the reason why it stood out to me, is because we have these blocks that just I don't know, like represent certain things. Like there's a reason why lucid dreaming is attractive to everyone. It's because it's just this kind of pure basic power block with a very straightforward move. It was just like, here's an undercling, here's a bad pinch, there's the crimp. Like good luck, guys.
I remember in an old Alex Migos video, he was like, "Yeah, there's no tricks. There's only one way to do it. No drop knees, nothing." And then when I came up with that beta, I think I like texted my friends, and I was like, "Yeah, there's a few tricks."
I mean, exactly, dude. And I think that's so cool. And this is something I always uh, or argue for or promote in climbing is new technologies, new ways of thinking, and then seeing it get applied to a classic block that's been around and tried for a long time and is almost known, like you said, for being pure and
Yeah,
untrickable. Like that's cool, man. Like way to go. We will get into that more,
yeah.
but let's start on the Northeast, man, because that's well, I was going to say that's where you're from, but I'm not totally sure. Is that where you grew up, and how'd you get into climbing?
That's where I'm from. I mean, I was born in California, but I lived there for maybe like 2 months when I was a tiny baby. But I'm raised in the Northeast. It's where my entire climbing career started. I So this here's the funny part about the climbing origin story. When you had Adam Shahar on, he told his origin story for climbing, and I could have sworn that was mine. So I don't I honestly I think we have a very similar one, and like to like down to the ice cream shop and everything going into the, you know what I mean? It's really close. What I remember is walking into this local ice cream shop with my mom, and she had seen an ad on Facebook for this gym near us, and then we saw a flyer in the ice cream shop, and then we went and checked it out. It was a high exposure in Northvale, New Jersey, and then I don't know, it was so quick. I tried climbing, and then went back to the gym the next day, saw them doing team tryouts, and I was like, "Hey, can I try out for the team?" And I tried out, and they put me right in the competitive team, and it's kind of just been smooth sailing from there.
day one this is, I think Adam made this joke where people, the gym coach will say like, "Oh, you look like you have talent. Like you should definitely join the team." And they're like, it's their first time they're climbing V0. It's clearly just like, I mean, what we'd really like is your parents' money. Please
Yeah.
join the team. You show a lot of promise. So that sounds like you, but you clearly did well. So you started out competing, man.
Yeah. No, I guess you could say I was a comp kid in a way, you know. But no, it was I mean, I started off competing. I I jumped right into it. My first year went to regionals, didn't do well, but I went. And then ever since then I was doing the youth circuit until I couldn't anymore until my last year. And then I did the open circuit a little bit, but I don't really compete that much anymore. I still love it, but I'd rather be out here, trying the hard blocks and stuff. I'll do the local comps; they're fun, but I'm kind of over the USA climbing comps.
Yeah, we kind of chuckled about this whole comp kid thing where it's almost like this derogatory term slash like what does make you a comp kid, or can you leave that moniker behind if you, well, if you live in the desert in your truck for 3 weeks? It feels like it's not exactly makes you a comp kid. But anyways,
Yeah,
let's not get into that.
fair
Uh,
enough.
so were you more of a boulderer? Like, or were you good at the coordination slab stuff? Like, I think of you as being, I don't know, man. I think of your style as being very outdoor oriented. You seem to really
hmm
excel outdoors.
I uh I definitely was more of a bowler. I was like scared on lead, like really scared. I don't know why, but I was always really scared on lead. Like I had to be like forced into, not forced, that sounds bad, but I was scared, But I think my style always kind of ended up being coordination in one way or another, surprisingly. Like if you talk to like Benn Wheeler or something, he'll always tell you he always jokes around like he's like, "Oh, you always do coordination on the board. It's the future of board climbing and blah blah blah." But I don't know, I always find myself doing some weird coordination moves and I enjoy them a lot. I don't know if I'm like necessarily like the best at them or good at them in any way, but I like them a lot and I think I understand them well, like body movement wise. So I think that's why I end up doing them.
I mean, dude, this is just to go back to this like comp kid, like derogatory term, but then like that coordination that we see
I was gonna
exhibited.
say this.
Yeah, like well, let you go for it.
Oh, so I was gonna say, I think hot take, but I don't think there's really anything wrong with being considered a comp kid in a way. Like, I mean, if you wanted to call me a comp kid, I'd be totally fine with it. I mean, it's just a whole new era, I think, because all the comp kids are the ones that are now going out and crushing shit. So,
Well, but not just that, man. Like there's that, but then like I could yell that you're a comp kid while you're standing on top of Lucid after doing a coordination move, and it's like, well, come join me, bro. Like you
yeah.
go do that coordination move because the fact that you brought, yeah, like that's the thing I find interesting is bringing that indoor movement outdoors and unlocking something new. And I don't know if it's easier like that. I'd actually like to hear more from you. Like, have other people done that crux move on Lucid with your style? Like, has anyone else sent it using that method?
Um, I know no one else has sent it. I know that for sure. I talked to Zach Gallo about it a little bit, and he always told me to him it made sense that it worked. And I might be saying this wrong, so sorry, Zach, if I'm misquoting you, but he said it always made sense to him, but he never like I don't know. I think he said he couldn't figure it out or couldn't really like quite understand the movement. I mean, he could do the normal way just fine. He's a tank, but I think he just said he couldn't figure out the double clutch. So I think there's something different to it, and I think there's some weird to double clutching off like crimps and stuff too. I don't think I think because I like did it on the boards a lot, it kind of like formed into my weird own style maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I don't know. It's interesting. This is again why your name came up so many times over the years, because I like pointing to that example as being future thinking. And the other example I always point towards is Industry of Cool. I think that's what it's called. And it's like, the double or triple clutch dyno out in Rocklands that, go is like just V12 or something. But I guarantee you, if you went back 20 years or 30 years he went and talked to Fred Nicole about who was easily climbing V12, he would not have been able to do that climb, not because he wasn't physically capable, but because it just wasn't in his repertoire of movement or understanding. And so I love seeing you bring new thinking, new styles to classic blocks. So congrats, man.
I appreciate it. I wish I could take all the credit that it was like fully my beta, where I totally I thought about it for sure myself, but the person that actually inspired me to try it first was Ross Fulkerson. He was just there one day and he was like, "What if you double clutch to that one?" And and he lit the spark. I always thought about it, but I was always too embarrassed. I guess kind of too embarrassed to try it.
That's interesting. Oh, well, first of all, shout out to Ross. Ross has a great understanding of movement, and I, I don't know. I learned a lot from Ross when it came to these, you know, coordination type of movements. Where he was like, "Dude, just think backwards. Like, if that position is good, then like,
Hmm.
what do you need to do to get to that position?" And it's kind of obvious, but it's almost like flipping movement on its head, where you think about like it going backwards, and so makes sense. Oh yeah, what I wanted to ask though is you said you felt maybe embarrassed. Like I just want to unpack that.
Yeah. No, I've noticed this like honestly more times than I can remember that like I don't know why. I don't know if it's just me and maybe other people feel the same way, but like trying like a freak beta or like just random beta in front of people just feels kind of weird sometimes unless you're in an environment where it doesn't. Like the night I did the double clutch for the first time, Keenan and Katie were there and they were just like hyping it up and they were like, "Yeah, you gotta try." And they're awesome. They're super nice and they're into like the funky shit, right? So it was like awesome to have them there supporting that. But if it was just like, I don't know, a bunch of other people trying Lucid and like doing the jump and like owning that, I think I would have been like, "Oh no, I should do it like that, how they do it," because I don't want to like make a fool of myself trying to double clutch and not even get close.
Yeah, interesting how that gets in the way of progress. Like
Yeah, I fully agree.
I appreciate you like sharing what it actually feels like, but it's almost like a cautionary tale because look at how you sent it. Like, what if you just let that feeling overtake you and never have experimented? So, I mean, I know you've done the move without the double clutch, but perhaps it wouldn't have worked out for you.
No, I fully agree, and genuinely, I think I gotta thank Ross for that one because he definitely lit the spark big time. He was like, "No, just do it."
Nice. All right. Ross, friend of the pod. I think he might actually be on the episode that comes out right before this one. So shout out Ross Fulkerson and all those other names too. I'll link
Yeah,
all those other people's, Keenan, Katie, Adam, all been on the pod.
everybody.
Okay. I said we weren't going to get too into Lucid, but I can't help it. Who doesn't like Lucid? Uh, you told a little bit about your origin story and proudly wearing the potential moniker of Comp Kid. So, Austin, there's this Northeast area, and you said, New Jersey, this specific gym in New Jersey that you climbed in. You got to understand that people from the West Coast, like me, like the idea that California, like if you say I'm going to go from California to Nevada, it's like a giant trip. And so you don't want to say like the West Coast because that's like 20 hours worth of driving all along this stuff. So when we say the Northeast, like what area of climbing are we talking about? Like why do we refer to it as the Northeast? Like what are these boulders out in the quote unquote Northeast?
North. Okay, so I think Northeast. It's quite. I mean, it's definitely not just like when you say California, but it is pretty damn big. Like to me, the Northeast stretches from like maybe like I guess I'll give it to PA just so the Wheelers feel included, but I will say PA to like Maine, like that whole stretch, like that's the Northeast to me. It's like maybe you can drive 8 hours in any of those directions and get to like like a climbing zone that has projects and has a lot of rigs and has good rock and has someone who's psyched and a crew that's psyched developing it and climbing there.
Okay, I want to just go deeper and deeper into the Northeast because it's an area that I haven't climbed at, man. And I would say that it seems like not a lot of people have climbed in the Northeast, but there's always been, so we have a mutual friend, Bryce Viola, and I mean there's a lot of people have come before Bryce in the Northeast team, but I just have always heard about, well, like Austin Hoyt, the Wheelers, Adam Shahar, like, and this kind of Northeast, like these guys, are strong and they're coming up. But that was 6 years ago, and you never know what actually is going to happen. You hear murmurs about people in some area being good, but it's like, well, maybe it's all soft over there, or maybe they're going to give up. But then in the last couple of years, the Northeast crew has really pushed out some of the best climbers in America, maybe in the world, man. And so tell me more about like the vibe and the scene there and the community that led to you guys all kind of being incredibly strong climbers.
Well, first off, I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. I'm glad. I'm sure the entire Northeast appreciates it. But no, I think a like a major part of Northeast is like mentality and vibe, and like it's like if it snows, we're still gonna go out and try our V13 project. If it's 80 degrees and humid, we're still gonna go out and try our V13 project or anything, V10 project, V8, V15. Like we'll try no matter what. I'm sure a lot of places are the same, but I think just like being in a place where so many people like are determined no matter what to get out and try hard and improve and just like wreck themselves on hard boulders and hard sport climbs and hard board climbs like is inspiring. And I think the community in the Northeast is just like everyone builds on themselves.
Yeah, I love that idea of going out and trying your project, cold, hot, whatever. And I will say that I've seen some of those Instagram stories of the ones that always jump out to me is you guys go out when it's bitter cold. Like, I mean, bitter cold. And I like, dude, I love the cold, but there's a level where it's kind of different. And all of a sudden it's not like cold and tacky. It's like you're just trying to survive and build that psyche and just, yeah. What's the coldest productive session you've had?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'll tell you first, the coldest session I've had that wasn't productive, I think it was like maybe it was like 9 degrees, I think, Fahrenheit. And that sucked. I definitely climbed. I think I did a V9, but it sucked. It was miserable. But I think probably the coldest productive session I had was probably like in the 15 to range, 15 to 20 without wind. If there's wind, it's just I'm going home. But if there's no wind, I think I can usually make 15 to 20 work. It's funny being out here in Bishop. I'm like, oh my God, it's 40 degrees today. It's way too hot.
Well, dude, this is what I really like about Bishop too, though, is it's 40 degrees and you're sitting in the sun with your shirt off, soaking it up, and then you walk into the shade and you're like, oh, it's cold.
Yeah, you're freezing right away.
Yeah. So tell me more about the style of climb. Let's keep it to bouldering because there's Rumney, which is I've never been, but I don't know why I've always just been attracted to that as a cool sport
It's
crag.
awesome.
I know that there's a multi-pitch or traditional style climbing there, but let's keep it to bouldering and just tell me about like, well, and tell me if there's multiple different areas that have different kinds of climbing. But what's the rock type like? What's the is it usually really steep? Is it really technical? Is it thuggy? Just tell me more about the climbing in the Northeast.
Yeah. No, there's so many different zones with so much different rock type. I feel like more or less you can think of a rock type and it's probably there in one way or another. Like my local crag, the Gunks, which is like my favorite crag in the world, that's quartz conglomerate. If you could drive like 30 minutes in one direction and there's this random mini crag with sandstone somehow. But if you drive 2 hours north, you can get to Great Barrington and there's gneiss. And if you drive even further to Vermont, there's all this schist, and then there's all this like Switzerland-esque like schist and gneiss, and there's everything. If you go to PA, there's diabase, like there's and every single rock type has its own unique style. Like in the Gunks, there's a lot of I'd say like powerful like crimping. Like it's hard to describe a style because there's everything, but it's a lot of I would say you either get really good holds and steep terrain and big moves, or like small holds and face crimping. Those are like the two apparent styles in the gunks. If you drove up to like Vermont, you get a lot of Switzerland styles on the nice, which is like the big holds, big moves, steep. Great Barrington, which is there's classics there like Roses and Blue Jays, which is a V13 that was yeah that was featured in Dosage 5. It's iconic. It's like kind of techie, slight overhang climbing on pretty okay or small crimps, and that's a lot of Great Barrington. But you can name it and it's there, in my opinion.
Dude, that sounds cool. What about just the aesthetics for you? Like, I guess you're out in Bishop, which is probably the place I know the best and kind of has always been something I benchmark other areas about. Like, do you think that the Northeast has some really slept on, like beautiful lines? I gotta say, Roses and Blue Jays. Like, if I go to the Northeast, like that's where I'm headed, and I think that's beautiful. But yeah, give me like a little more, like paint the picture of like the the setting. Like, is it all in forest,
Okay.
or and what do the lines look like?
No, I think if you're, most of it is probably in the woods, in the forest, a lot of trees, not a lot of, like sometimes a lot of sunlight, but not a lot of open areas. If you drive to Maine, though, you can climb in a 50-foot long cave right on the ocean. That's pretty sick. There's not many, in my opinion, there's not many places like that on perfect basalt. Uh, I think some standout lines to me. You said Roses, which is like a fantastic line. But even when you're at Great Barrington, there's like these lines that no one knows. Like Bryce FA'd this thing called "Suspended in the Darkness," which is maybe one of the best lines in the Northeast. It's just this overhung proud that's like tall and proud. If you if you go to the Gunks, there's this thing called East Coast Thriller, which is probably I feel like probably not, maybe like 8 people listening to this podcast have heard of it. And it's like this king crimp line straight up on this tall block, like there's so many sleepers and there's so many classics. I couldn't name them all. But if you wanted to like go climb aesthetic lines, you could. But it's not the same as Bishop. Definitely not. It's totally different.
That's maybe not a fair comparison too. I feel like Bishop is, I mean, even yeah, Bishop stands out
I think Bishop's the place. Yeah.
for at least for aesthetic lines
Yeah.
and just wrecking your skin too.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to toss in, I think it's called Speed of Life. Is that the name of that?
Yeah.
Like V10? That I saw. I've seen plenty of pictures of and videos of that. It looks damn good.
That one's fantastic.
So you guys are all kind of like something a consistent thread between all those names you named is that you guys have strong fingers. You guys can crimp. Do you think that is that just kind of happenstance? Is that like you guys all would be on boards a lot, maybe because the weather wasn't good and you were indoors, or is that something that is required to do well in the Northeast? Like, any thoughts on why you guys all have just steel fingers?
I think the weather and the boards and stuff, that's a totally fair shout. And I would agree with that to an extent. But I think the hard climbing and the hard crimps in the Northeast are just smaller than most places. I think the holds are just worse. Like you come to Bishop and you grab like the crimps on the process or like even the crimp on devolution or like, I mean, devolution is just weird moves, but like the crimps on direct north or even the swarm or all this stuff. And you're like, these just aren't as small as like the crimps on my projects back at home. Like we just like, I think because we have such a limited number of like really hard boulders and we're mostly trying projects, we have no like scope necessarily of really how hard it is. Like it could be V14 or it's V16. I haven't done some of these moves, so I don't know. But I know I can grab this hold and get close.
It's something that's actually kind of funny about the buttermilks is that it's known to be like crimpy, but I would actually argue that the crimps are surprisingly positive and big. Like
Yeah,
it's yeah, it's often I mean I do not agree with your hot take that swarm crimp is a jug, but I would say that some of the more iconic lines like I don't know, yeah, direct north or mandala, like those holds are kind of I wouldn't call them jugs, but they're not micros, you know?
No, they're good crimps. And to your point about the swarm crimp being a jug, I when I said that, I didn't mean it was a jug, but I do stand on the fact that when I got there and I touched it, I was like, "Oh, this is a lot better than I assumed it was." And like in my head, since I thought it was so bad, going up to it feeling that it was better, I was like, "Oh, I'll just be able to own it. Like I'll just be able to just do it now." And so in my head, I was like, "Oh, it's a jug compared to what I thought it was," you know?
I'm curious about what you thought about the feet on that because I think some of the things that make Bishop hard is putting weight on your feet and doing those big moves off of the decent crimps.
Yeah. No, I mean, I might be a bad person to talk to about the swarm because I think it fit everything about my style really well. But the feet felt good, the hands felt good. I think the hardest part for me was after I stick the jump, coming into this left hand Gaston and just like keeping my feet on for that was probably the hardest part. But once I figured it out, I could more or less like feel super steady on it. But I do think the feet in Bishop in general are pretty bad. Like I did Jedi Mind Tricks for the first time a few days ago, and that is a hard V4. Like those feet are bad.
Dude, what a good line. Is that not like one of the coolest climbs out there? I that gets high on my star rating
That's
of
totally
climbs.
fair. No, the first time I did it, I climbed it so poorly, and I was like, "Oh, come on, classic." And then I did it again, knowing what the beta was. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's pretty damn good."
Well, that's the thing, dude, is you're so strong, you were probably able to just kind of force it, but it's actually surprisingly technical down low and then committing and powerful at the top and it's very tall. I'll link to some video of that. That's for me. I remember that was something that stood out in my head as like one of my first trips to Bishop and scared myself. And I was really proud of doing that because it's a beaut.
Yeah,
Okay, dude, we keep going to to
the
Bishop.
Bishop.
I know you're in Bishop, but you live in the Northeast. So to connect with some of that stuff around, well, Bishop, the way you did Lucid, also trying things in a different way. When I first met you in Bishop, I was climbing on this thing called Scanner Darkly with Bryce Viola, and Bryce kind of pioneered new beta with like a wild toe hook. And you came and you showed up. Bryce was like, "Oh, dude, you guys see this band?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, I tried that toe hook." And then you guys made some comment or alluded to like quote unquote Northeast Vision, and I just want to know if like is that kind of like an inside joke about how you guys view beta, or just tell me more about what you meant when you said Northeast Vision.
Yeah. I think maybe it's a little bit of an inside joke between Bryce and I to an extent, because I think we always like when I first started climbing with Bryce, he would always be like, "Oh, I'm like having a vision of beta right now," and it'd be like the wackiest shit ever, you know? Like on Devolution, we found this like mini thumb thing that we would like thumb press on, and it was just like just wacky shit. But then it kind of ends up working a lot of the time, and what we found is the beta we end up doing in the Northeast and a lot of our projects, like are moves we don't see like ever anywhere else. It's like Bryce if he's like stuck on a move, he's just gonna throw his heel over his head and then all the weight's off his hands and he could just do whatever he wants. And I've seen it work countless times. And you're just like every time you're like, where else do you see that? Like where are you gonna see like him curled up in a ball with his heel on his hand, moving his other hand and like backflagging on some weird, like I think sorry, I totally went on a tangent, but I think the Northeast Vision beta or whatever, like it's just because, like I said before, we're trying all these projects and we have this like limited, I guess like our view of how we can do it is like limited in a way where we're like maybe we're not strong enough to just jump to a one arm. So let's see how we can figure out how to avoid jumping to it one arm, and maybe we'll go foot first,
Unless Adam is there and
unless
he'll
Adam is there.
he'll
Yeah.
jump to it. Yeah, I dude, like Bryce did the buttermilker using that crimp in some weird way,
Yeah.
and it does work. And so what it sounds like to me, I'll just repeat it back to you and see if I'm understanding it right. Is that you guys spend a lot of time projecting undone, developing, doing undone blocks, and
Yeah,
that helps you kind of expand your horizons and just allow you to be creative, which uh, it's working. And I mean, you kind of almost make it sound like it's because you're not strong enough. But that may have been true when you were younger. But I always think that that creativity plus the strength you guys all bring to the table actually does unlock some of the hardest blocks in the world. And I love that, man. I thought it was really cool.
that's right. Thank you. I appreciate it. And one thing I'll add to that point is I had a long chat with Bryce about this in Africa one time when we were in Rocklands. And I think we came to the conclusion we were like, sometimes though, like we get so locked into trying new beta and trying to figure out another way around something we just like waste time. Like we were both trying the guest list in Africa, and like there's a V7 outro after you do the crux, and you just climb these crimps. And we were like, oh, we can make that easier. And we spent like an hour trying to make it easier, and then it was like, oh, we can't. So we just went back to the original way, and we just wasted, so much time. So I think there is something to knowing when to stop too, which is kind of what I've been working on recently too.
Yeah, dude, I struggle with this oftentimes too because sometimes I'm tempted when I can just do a move. I'm just like, well, I can do it, so I'm just going to do it. And then you start failing too many times, you start getting tired, and then you go in your head, you're like, should I try to refine this? Should I just commit one more time and try super hard? And yeah, I don't know. I think it's good to understand that you have different sides of the spectrum that you can lean on, and then to double check yourself and be like, so am I like I don't know, just am I approaching this right now, or should I rethink it? So makes sense,
Yeah,
dude.
for sure.
The other kind of quote unquote Northeast vision thing that I saw you guys do is uh, Bryce was like, oh, dude, there's a project. Maybe you were like, there's a project between evolution or devolution and the process. And just, I feel like you guys see lines that, I mean, maybe that one's been scoped, but I don't really know. Just that like, there's even more out there than we realize. And maybe we're spoiled, or maybe we're just blind to what's right in front of us.
Yeah, I think well that one yeah, I'm not sure like you said, I'm sure I'm sure like Dan Beal or something has been like, oh, this whole lot, yeah. But in general, like I think coming from the Northeast and not having like these super like we don't have lines necessarily like the process, or evolution, just straight up, nothing in between. Like when we find lines, a lot of the time it's like there's you can go this way for this or go this way and make it this grade or this or that. And I mean, some people aren't into like a lot of lines on one boulder, but I think in the Northeast, since we're just psyched, we want to climb it all. Like, there's no reason to not. In my opinion, if there's a line to be climbed on a boulder, it should be climbed. It doesn't matter if in your head it's going to make the boulder worse or make this line worse because now you can go this way. Like, there's a line there. It will provide difficulty or a challenge for someone who wants it, and if you don't want it, don't do it.
Dude, I love that ethos of if there's a line, it should be climbed. And I actually, something that I did more as I don't know if a kid, as like a newer climber, is I kind of had that mentality of like, I'm going to climb everything. Like this dumpy, I don't know, just like I'm going to climb this line, because it's right there. And then I don't know if like you get, honestly, like there's an element of when you get stronger, you in some ways like have to save skin, you have to save power, and you get a little more selective. And you're like, no, I'm going to climb the 5-star V9, not like 3 2-star V8s right next to it also. And you have to be a little more selective. But there's an element of volume and exposure to different movements that you lose there. And so I think that's a good, like, dude, I went to the SADS the other day on my way out, and some of your recommendations were like, you're like, oh, like this is a really cool V11 that,
Yeah.
no one probably does. And only gets like 1 star, but it was really cool. And I didn't even look at it, Austin. but, but I liked your encouragement, and hearing what you said just kind of like clicked off my head. Where like, there's probably something to that, man.
No, I definitely think I think you can learn something from anything. Like what I found myself doing on these trips with when I'm projecting is like I'll try the process and try it and try it and try it. But then as soon as I start to feel like a little unmotivated or a little just something's off, I'll go and have like a fun day and do whatever. Like I'll climb the shittiest blocks ever if that's what looks fun to me. I don't really like I don't know. I guess I don't really care because like if I want to, I can rest and try the 5-star ones. But if I don't want to, I can just go have fun on the 1-star ones and in a way have a similar experience because I'm still gonna get thrashed, still gonna be trying hard, and I'm still gonna be learning. It's just it's similar but different, you know.
So it just makes me think how you're coming from a place with maybe not quite as much iconic, perfect lines as Bishop, but clearly you have a deep love of climbing that, you're willing to climb on everything and anything and just have fun. Like, like, do you think that that stems from where you cut your teeth, or do you think that's you? Like, is there something that like is maybe it's bad to just be an elitist and like, oh, I will only climb 5-star, blocks or whatever.
I think it definitely stems from the Northeast, for in my opinion, because just at least the crew I climb with, like Troy Photo or his brother Brad Photo or any of those guys, like we'll go out on a day and have one set mission, right? And we'll be like, oh, let's go try this boulder. But we'll bring our like brushes to scrub new blocks and stuff, and Brad will run off, scrub something, and then all of a sudden our entire day transitioned to this thing Brad scrubbed randomly and we didn't even plan on trying. So I definitely think it stems from the community in the Northeast. I think a lot of people are like that there. And I don't think it's necessarily like bad to be I mean, it's not good to be a snob for sure when it comes to that stuff. It's not bad. It's just it's what you like. It's your preference. So I think it's totally fine. But I think the people that are willing to, get down and dirty on the 1-stars are probably gonna end up with a better movement catalog than the rest. Like Adam Andra doing Terra Nova. Like, that's a low ball traverse. And my girlfriend Siri, she coaches the kids at our gym. She's a head coach, and she always tells the kids like the biggest thing about climbing is like collecting moves is how we phrase it. Like the more moves you collect, the more you can like it's like a Pokemon card. You can be like, oh, here, I'm going to use this one now.
It's funny that you said Pokemon because that was kind of what we would say is gotta catch them all. You gotta get all the boulders. And I feel like I was better at that indoors where it was like, no, I'm gonna climb everything, like everything in the gym. And then you end up on some weird V6 slab and you're like, oh my God, like I'm cruxing right now. And then, but you do it because it's there, because you have to. You gotta catch them all. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's a good mentality. It makes me wonder what it's like for you to spend weeks in Bishop and then go back to the Northeast. Like, what? How does that change your lens of what you love about the Northeast, or does it change it at all?
I don't really know if it changes it at all, honestly. Like I know going on these trips, I usually have some goals, and usually my goals will revolve around like obviously the classics and the king lines. I also get inspired pretty hard by like Obscura, and I like kind of like, for lack of a better word, reviving things that haven't been done in a while. But when I go back to the Northeast, I think everything just kind of feels like it switches back to normal for me. And I'm just like, yeah, I'll go try my project one day. And then after I try my project, I'll go try this little FA thing I brushed up that might be a 1-star V8, but it'll be a new one in the gunks that people can go and try.
I like that style, man. And I I made me think of climbing on whoever's scanner with Bryce, who's like, let's go try the Crankinator. Let's get on the
Yep.
Crankinator, which is definitely Obscura and reviving and nails. I don't think
Yeah.
he did. You guys try that? Did you guys ever get out there and try that?
No, we didn't get any good days weather-wise. It's like such a weird one to try.
Yeah, I don't even. I just my off the top of my head, it's a V13 that Sharma did. That's like slopey in the sun, and maybe Nale has repeated. Has anyone else done it? Do you know?
Maybe, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Nale did it, but I don't know. I'm sure someone else on that trip did it, It's right next to birthing experience. So I'm sure someone has at least played.
I like that quote. Nale's probably done it. Or yeah,
Yeah,
like you could just say that about any boulder in the world. Just yeah, I mean, Nale's probably done it. We don't know, but you know, someone knows. Someone knows. There's some stories
Nale
out there.
knows.
Nale knows. Okay, you just did the FA of Big Bad Wolf. It was the Northeast first V15, and I loved your video on it. And just yeah, tell me a little bit about, dude. That's a big freaking benchmark that will never be forgotten. So again, congrats, and just tell me more about the climb and how you found it and the whole process to descend.
Yeah, thanks. No, that's definitely something I think that will live. The experience will live with me forever for sure as well. Like it was pretty magical. It kind of all goes back to, let's see. It starts off with this other project we were trying in a cave next to it called Playing with Sticks that Adam ended up FAing, which is like this V14 thing. And then after he did it, he went to the cave that Big Bad Wolf is in, which is right next to it again. And he was there with this other local who was our friend, Liam Welling. And Liam was like, "Oh, look, there's these holds in the middle of the cave that you can start on and link into the finish of this other V11, right? Which is a super classic called Further into the Forbidden Forest. It was also in Dosage 5 as like the last boulder P-Rob FA'd. Um, but yeah, so Adam does this stand start from the middle of the cave on these two obvious crimps, two moves into like one massive throw. It's probably like a V11 move on its own, and you link into the end of the V11. And Adam, yeah, blah, 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 no service out there. He gets back to the car, he sends us footy, and we're all, me, Ben, Noah, all of us, we're just like, that's fucking sick. Like, that is awesome. There's just a new line in the cave that looks like a board climb, and it's just a hard throw. So then Adam, lo and behold, Adam was like, oh yeah, there's a low start too. I kind of played on. And I think it goes, but I couldn't really do any of the moves. It was really hard, and I was tired, blah, blah, blah. So that was kind of the end of the story that season. No one really tried it more after that. But then the Wheelers came back home next season, and it was like summer. And we decided, we were like, all right, I guess we'll go to the cave. It's 90 degrees out, but I guess we'll go to the cave and try some of these low moves. So we get there, we play around a little bit, and I ended up doing the moves on the low way quicker than I expected. Like, I think I did all the moves but one, and then Adam did that one that no one else had done. And we were like, holy shit, like, there's a line here that goes. It's like, obviously, really hard to just get into the stand Adam FA'd. And all the moves gone in like summer. And I think ever since that moment, I was kind of locked in. I was kind of like, this is my project for the season. I'm going to try this. And before Adam moved to Salt Lake, it was his project. And then he moved to Salt Lake, and then it was mine. So, but that's kind of the story of like finding it.
How steep is it? It looks like just a full on roof.
Yeah, it's basically full roof. Maybe like 70 degrees overhanging, something like that. 60, 70, full roof.
I like the names you guys chose. I don't know. I just I'm kind of a naming snob. Not that matters that much for climbing. Clearly, it's very abstract, but just shout out to you guys. Is I like the names. Like the
Thank
names.
you. I appreciate it. It all stemmed from the Forbidden Forest, which was the first line in the cave, and we were just like, I guess it's kind of fairy tale-y.
So it starts in the back of the cave, and if I remember, the first move is a grotesque shoulder move. Just tell me about the breakdown of the climb. The low Big Bad Wolf.
Basically, you start on these two jugs, and you just do this full span move out to like this flat. So we're in a 70-degree roof, and you got to picture like just a flat piece of rock hanging down from the roof. That's basically what you guessed on. You go to just a flat piece with a little spike, and then get your foot right next to your hand on the start hold, and you just have to lock down on this like super mega Gaston and come into this like, for me it's like a full wide pinch in the roof, and then you bump again to a mini pinch. So you go from like a full wide pinch to a mini pinch in a roof, and then it ends with this hard footwalk into like a drive by to the left hand start of the stand. And I think that sequence into the stand start we were thinking was something like V13. It sounded like that's where it would settle at. And then from there, the stand is like a hard V12 some French Canadian guy who came and tried Big Bad Wolf repeated the stand and was like V12 question mark, and Adam messaged him and he was like, "Oh, do you think it's easier?" And the guy was like, "Oh no, I think it's harder." So it's something like that.
Well, this is this whole thing where you can give grades to things, but when it's a one mover, it's like, like you said, that stand start, that Adam F8 is the lower start to the thing. P-Rob F8 at V11. It's like a one move V11. And there's just something
Kind
about like, oh, okay, go ahead.
It's like, sorry, the V11 starts like to the right and it goes straight up, and then the thing Adam fade is just joins into the end of the V11. So Adams is like two setup moves into one move V11 that he F8, like it's still his climb. So the ending of it's like a V7.
The move, one of the parts of the video or your YouTube that I found really interesting is that you were doing that Gaston move, which, dude, I feel like I feel like Gaston doesn't quite do it justice. It looks like a Gasto cling, like
Yeah,
really behind your head, just really a nice shoulder wrecker. And then you come into this kind of intermediate wider pinch and then go into a min pin. And it looked like you were really struggling with that move. And then you kind of had this breakthrough where you said instead of shouldering into that Gaston, you kind of like leaned back and said, can you describe that again? And that unlock, I just thought that was really cool how you figured that out.
yeah, I remember the session actually pretty well because, like you said, I was struggling coming into that mini pinch. That right hand move was like super hard, and I was super up in my shoulder, and the pinch was like in my face, like up here. And once I realized if I could like hit the intermediate and then straighten out and relax, I could kind of lean to the left and the pinch wouldn't be in my face anymore. It'd be like almost in front of me and I could grab it how I want it and twist my wrist in the right way to like really dig on the mini pinch. I think the micro beta that allowed me to like twist my wrist was the most important part.
How'd you figure that out, Austin?
I think I think it goes back to like the Northeast beta like I don't know. Maybe it goes back to trying to overanalyze and all this, but when I climb, I feel like I'm not as like strong as everyone. I know I'm not as strong as everyone else. Like Adam is like a freak of nature, and Noah, Ben, all of them are freaks of nature, and they're fucking strong. But I think my like superpower, for lack of a better word, kind of falls more in the territory of like micro beta and figuring things out and just like understanding body position a lot more. So I think my brain works well and I can kind of put the pieces together and know where I have to be. And then I just have to figure out how to get there.
My hunch is that there's an element of just all that acquired movement you've done throughout the years too. Just that psych that you have probably leads into that. And I hear what you're saying when you're comparing yourself to Noah and Adam and Ben, but I think it'd be unreasonable to say that you're weak compared
All
to
right, that's
maybe
fair.
compared to those guys literally might be some of the strongest that the world has ever seen in climbing. And
Literally.
so literally I just want to highlight when you do the climb and you are psyched, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
you were psyched, and of course you were. You just had FA the first V15 in the Northeast. I mean, the fact that it starts on two jugs and goes out a 70-degree roof,
Oh,
like
it's so sick.
amazing. And then my favorite part, as you're just sitting there with your mind blown, is you just say, "I gotta text the boys," and just tell me what, like, after doing it, like, what do you mean, like, I gotta text the boys? Like, how is that related to you doing it?
Yeah, so I mean, me, Noah Wheeler, Ben Wheeler, Anant Mathur, and Adam Shahar. We have a group chat where, and like we're really good friends. Like, they're some of my best friends in the world, and I don't know. I like kept them pretty updated on the process because we all tried it together and we all knew it was hard and we were like, and Noah and Adam were actually the first ones to say they thought it could be the first V15 in the Northeast because I was always like, maybe we did all the moves like but they were like, no, I think it is. Like I think it's hard. And yeah, when I topped out and sent it, I was like, I couldn't believe it. Like it happened way sooner than I expected. Everything clicked and when I got back to my phone, I was like, they have to know, like, they'll be so psyched. They'll be want to come try it right away, you know? They're like, they won't even believe me probably that I just did it. So I, yeah, I think it was just pure excitement. I needed to share with somebody. Like, there's like this little rock right outside the cave you could stand on to get service. So I ran over there and texted them, and then I called my dad right away. I think I texted Bryce too. Like, I was just like so psyched. I was like, I gotta tell my friends.
And did you skip school to go and try it that day?
Yeah, the morning I woke up, I had geology in the morning, and I had planned to go try anyways. But I woke up and I was like, ah, shit, I feel really guilty about skipping class. Like, I told my mom I wouldn't skip for climbing, and I'm a man of my word, and I blah blah. And then Siri was just like, Siri's my girlfriend. She was like, dude, like, today's the day. Like, you know it. Like, one day won't be the end of the world. Like, it's worth it. Like, you're psyched and you're close, and you should do it. So I trusted my gut. I trusted her, and I went out, and yeah, it was amazing. And even my mom told me after the fact. She was like, it's okay. It was worth it.
Austin, you sound like an addict, and your girlfriend sounds like an enabler.
Yeah, yeah, maybe just a tiny bit, maybe.
I will say, worth it. But I just thought it was worth pointing out that that was one of the thoughts that crossed your mind and just was so raw where you're like, I gotta text the boys. And I just love that, man. I mean, I've now gotten to meet all you guys and climb with you a bit, and just you guys have a good crew. You guys have a great crew, and this is why I wanted to kind of learn more about the Northeast and why you guys are so strong and psyched. And I don't know if we can ever really get to the bottom of it, but like it seems like it shows, like both in you guys as a group, in your guys as solo climbing, and just talking to you guys, just this psych and this crew, and the vibes are good, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. It's everyone in the Northeast is the same too. Like, my buddy Isaac Leff is like the most psyched person I know. Like, everyone's the same out there. It feels like everyone's psyched.
Didn't Isaac just do really well at bouldering nationals?
Oh yeah, 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 really well. He started his own vlog too. You guys should check it out on YouTube. Isaac Leff.
Okay, we'll link it too. So, okay, you get the V15 done, and what about the V17 project that starts at the same spot?
The V17 is actually kind of crazy because we knew it was there like the same, like just as long as the other one. Like, we saw both, but it really took me like probably 5 sessions of genuinely just looking at it to like mentally figure it out and be like, oh wait, I think it does go. Like, I think it's all there. Like, I remember on my fifth like looking session is what I call it. I finally found this one undercling that I didn't see for any other day. I was just feeling around on the wall, and my hand just landed on it. And I was like, oh my god, it's right where you need it. So that was cool. And basically, right after, same day I did Big Bad Wolf, I was like, Siri, we gotta film this. I gotta try this. Like, I'm psyched. Let's film this. Try the moves. And I mean, I'm I will say I'm 100% confident that that rock climb goes, and I'm also 100% confident that that is what V17 feels like.
Interesting.
Yeah, I will. That's almost. If you're psyched, shoot me a message. And
Dude, I think it's funny how the internet works, and I'm pretty sure your video, like V17 Project, got more views than the FA of Big
it
Bad
did,
Wolf.
yeah.
No comments on that. And I just remember what I was going to say. I feel like I'm reminded of the mystique of the Southeast now that it's like the Northeast is the new Southeast. We had Jimmy come out of the Southeast. There was Brian Vogt, Taylor. There was
Yeah.
all these like strong climbers that we heard about, but I there wasn't that many hard climbs in the Southeast, in
Hmm.
the sense of like they weren't necessarily like, oh, here's a new V15, here's a new V16, until Jimmy did start kind of putting
Yeah.
out a V15, and that was a new era kind of came out of those climbers. And yeah, just kind of similar vibes for me where I'm like, oh, interesting, like Northeast. So V17 Project, is that what you think you'll sink your teeth into when you finally do head back east?
I think I'll definitely try it a few more days. I mean, I'd like to film another video on it because I think it'd be cool to just show a little bit more of the process too, and people seem to like it, so that's cool. But yeah, I honestly I don't know what I'm gonna think. I feel like I want to find another like 15 range thing to do. Like the V17 it's hard. Like that would probably I think I need to try it for like 2 years, to start like being like, oh, I'm close. But if I could find another cool like 14, 15 range thing to sink my teeth into for a season, I'd be more than psyched. I can't think of any right now that I'm like, or in like, I can think of a bunch, but I can't think of any that aren't like 2 hour drives away and that are close to me. You know what I mean? Wait, you know
Maybe you'll
what?
just have to start
That
trying the 17.
maybe I'll just have to try the 17. And I guess I made it sound like there aren't a lot of projects, but there are a lot of projects. Just nothing. I can't think of any that are like that pique my interest that aren't slopers or crimp. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay, you said something about this project that definitely perked my ears up where you said this boulder goes and it is definitely V17. V17 is an interesting grade that has a
it
lot
is.
of chatter around. Maybe I've contributed to that chatter as an armchair expert. And you just sent something that you graded V15 in the Northeast, which I feel like I think with the way you talk about it, I think you feel very confident with that grade, especially after talking or climbing on it with guys like Adam and Noah and Ben, who should have a good understanding of what we call V15. And then you came out to Bishop and you climbed Lucid Dreaming, also known as V15. Tell me a little bit about the grades and the comparison between the Northeast and we'll just say Bishop.
Yeah. I think it's funny. There's a lot of similarities, I think, but a lot of differences too. Because I think in the Northeast, for some reason, there's this like mindset that stuff harder than V13 is like impossible. And Bryce is a major contributor. I'll name drop him. I don't like he's like one of the strongest people I know, and he'll spend 10 sessions on something and then be like, "Oh, it's V11." And you're like, "Yeah, V11's hard for sure." But if you're spending 10 sessions on something, it's not V11. I promise you that. Like Bryce spent there's this project he was working for a while in Connecticut. And he said he finally figured out some new beta that allowed him to unlock it and climb it, and he graded a V12. And this new beta he had tried a while ago, and he's just stronger now, and it worked. So you know what I mean? Like I think a lot of that happens in the Northeast, where people don't believe in themselves as much as like they don't think they're as strong as they are. So I think a lot of stuff gets undergraded. And don't get me wrong, we have our fair share of softies just like every other place, but I think for the most part, grades in the Northeast are pretty stiff. Like even like I mean, maybe this is a hot take, but even like going down to the south, I was like, I don't know. Everyone says it's like sandbag down here. It's supposed to be really hard down here, and I go there and I'm like, eh, you know, it's it's climbing. They're grades.
Could that be stylistic? Because I actually had a similar experience in the Southeast where I climbed well there, and I'm not saying I wouldn't call it soft or hard. I was just like, yeah. And by the way, just on that note of Bryce and the Southeast, Bryce flashed the shield of iconic V12 down there. Also on live stream right after Daniel Fong flashed it for the first 1 and 2 flashes of the shield. So yeah, Bryce kind of strong. Maybe if it takes him 10 sessions, it's not V11. I would
Yeah,
toss that out there. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll have to let him know.
Well, let's directly compare the two V15s that you've had the most experience with, and that's Big Bad Wolf and Lucid Dreaming.
Yeah. No, I think they're both V15. But I know Lucid gets talk about being harder a lot, which I think it's fair to assume it was until recently, maybe because of style. But I think when you break down Big Bad Wolf and Lucid, they end up being pretty similar. Because to me, Big Bad Wolf is like a V13 into a V12. And to me, Lucid is like a two move V9 into a one move V12 into a one move V12. So I think where like the technically the grade breakdown on Lucid is easier, but when you actually think about it, doing one move of it's way different and it's hard to do that. Whereas Big Bad Wolf, you have some margin for error. You can mess up a little bit and bring it back on like the latter moves. But I think I don't know, if you took it down to bare bones, it'd be pretty damn close.
Sounds to me like Lucid is sandbag, just like the the Northeast. But I digress. Uh, Lucid is something that clearly caught your eye and you worked on over years. What even got you psyched on Lucid in the first place?
Yeah, no, funny story actually. This goes way back to COVID times when I first started I first interacted with Ethan Salvo on Instagram. We became friends pretty quick, but I saw that he had the Lucid like pinch sim on his wall and he was all like super gassed up about Lucid and it was like one of his dreamlands and he just made it like look inspiring, He was just talking about it and kind of, I guess it lit a spark, I think in me and in Adam. I think both of us, we were just like, oh, that is fucking sick. And like, it wasn't just that, like, obviously we knew it before that, but I think seeing someone like our friend Ethan, like, being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna try to do this, it really inspired us to be like, oh yeah, we're gonna try to do it too. That'd be awesome. So that was definitely step one. And then I think step two would be doing my first trip out to Bishop and looking at it for the first time, I was just like, oh yeah, I can't not try it. Like it's right there. It's just two of the hardest moves ever in a row, and then a glory top out. And my first session ever on it, I I think I just surprised myself. I was like, holy shit, like there's something here. I can hold the positions. Like Bryce was telling me, pulling onto the wall was hard. So when I first got there and was able to pull onto the wall, I was like, holy shit, like this is awesome. Like if I can do that, maybe I can keep trying it. And I kept trying it. And then I think maybe I tried the jump move 6 times in total, and I was able to send Rastaman. And I was like, wow, the dream totally goes. Did the pinch move, same session. And I was like, there's no reason I shouldn't keep trying it. Like clearly there's something here. It is a fantastic line. It is legendary. Like the legacy it has is unmatched to me. Even though maybe the process is a cooler line to some, or I don't know, for some reason, Lucid is just like the line in my head. And even after doing it, I'm like, I did that. Like that is fucking sick.
Yeah, congrats, man. It is fucking sick. So you did Rosterman vibration, which is when you pull on with the undercling and the pinch, and then do that next move. It kind of takes out the move from the undercling to the pinch, which I think you just threw a grade at of like V12.
Yeah,
So I've
personally.
heard that I want to say it was Jimmy Webb, but I could be wrong in that. But I've heard that there's been a lot of people who are like, oh, I can do the move from the undercling to the pinch. I can do the pinch move and the undercling to the crimp, but putting it together was a whole nother can of worms. And so when you had done Rosterman vibration and you went home and were applying and scheming for your next trip, what did your training look like for it?
Yeah. So my first thing when I got home was I took a bunch of holds from the gym and kind of crafted this homemade sim, you know, this homemade simulator, and kind of went to work on that. It wasn't perfect, but it got the job done. And actually, right when I did that, I posted on Instagram. I was like, "Hey, does anyone know where I could get like a replica of the pinch?" And Jason Keel actually, he's like like he messaged me back. He sent me one he had, and I think he wrote on the back like, oh shit, I forgot what he wrote on the back, but he just wrote like try fucking hard or something, like something inspirational that was like it was awesome that Jason Keel was willing to support the journey and just like send me one of his holds. And ever since then, I've just been kind of ripping the sim at home. I set one on my home wall, and then that company Mimic Holds came out with one. So I got in touch with them and I bought one of theirs. I put that up at the gym, and I think my tactic for the sim was to put it up and then make it easier. So I would kind of make it like better holds, like the undercling, I would always change that hold until I could finally put the sim hold on and feel good on it. I went from a jug at first, then like a jug crimp, then a crimp, and then I was like, okay, I'm ready for the sim hold now. And to me, that's the most useful way to do the sims. Just run laps on a little bit of an easier version.
First of all, go Jason. That is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
He's been
it
on the
was
pod,
sick.
by the way. He is an amazing guy, a really
Hmm.
cool guy. So I just want to go into the idea of doing a simulation where I've actually never even felt these mimic holds like from the company mimic holds, but I think it's so cool that they're doing that. Can so you decided that you would kind of keep the spacing. It sounds like maybe you keep the spacing appropriate, but with bigger holds and then shrink the holds versus, I don't know, you could make the argument that you could maybe keep the holds closer and use the same holds or put bigger feet, but you settled on bigger holds working smaller, right?
Yeah, for sure. And so the pinch Jason sent me is a polyurethane pinch, so it has a good amount of texture. But the pinches or the holes that Mimic make are 3D printed, which are sick, and their texture is a little slicker. Like it's definitely harder to do it on the Mimic set, in my opinion. So what I found myself doing was actually doing the sim, usually, honestly, almost 100% of the time on the polyurethane pinch, but all the other holds were the slippery ones. I figured I might as well. It's like the pinch training is more just to get my fingers used to it. So I figured it doesn't hurt to have that a little easier. And I think when it comes to making the move smaller and like doing stuff like that, I think you're kind of like losing the point of a simulator to a certain extent. Like you're gonna teach your body how to do a different move in a way. Whereas if it's a better hold, you're still getting the same movement. I think like the hand grip and everything isn't as important as the body movement.
Totally agree. Just wanted to hear you explain why, which just totally makes sense. Can you tell me more about each hold? I really want. It sounds like you have an intimate knowledge of the undercling, the pinch, and the crimp that you jump to. That kind of little sequence there that is the iconic sequence.
Yeah, I have a lot of knowledge. I think I spent 3 seasons in a row on it. Like when I got back for the first time this season, I was talking to Adam and Brian, and Brian was like, "Oh, when is the time to try Lucid?" And I was just like, "Oh, 3:30." And he was like, "Oh, you just know, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just know." But uh, yeah. So you do the first two moves. You start. I'll just start at the beginning, I guess. You start on this like rail, in cut rail thing. I go straight up to the undercling for my first move. There's a few different ways to do it, but I think now most people have settled on straight up to the undercling, which is how Toru, I don't know how to say his last name, but that's how Toru, I think he was the first person to send it like that. I think. I could be wrong, but that's his beta. Straight up, left foot on the start hold, and then you just come in to this intermediate. And I went through a lot of different grip types on grabbing the shark tooth. When I first started, I was so it's like a triangle, right? I would split my pointer finger and middle finger on the triangle and wrap the thumb really hard. And that's how I was first trying it. When I came back the second year, I ended up splitting my middle finger and in whatever this is, the ring finger.
Ring figure, yeah.
Yeah, I ended up splitting the ring finger on the spike, and it felt like I had a little bit more control, but I couldn't lock in as much. And then coming back that last like trip before this one, I ran into Sean Bailey who had just done it, and he was telling me he goes all three fingers on the side and kind of side pulls it and splits his pinky under. And as soon as he told me that, he was like, "Yeah, I really had to learn it. Like I was doing how you were doing it, but I forced myself to learn the three, and it just allowed me to feel locked in more." So I just trusted him, and I kind of worked that for a few sessions, and that is what I ended up going with. Three on the side and pinky kind of curled under. And then you do this high left foot open hip thing and just kind of, you can like surf up to the pinch. It's a fast move, but you kind of treat it like you're going slow. And the biggest thing I learned with that move this year was to overshoot the pinch a little bit. When I overshot it, and I did the footwalk, my hands would actually just slide into exactly where I needed it to be instead of like hitting it perfectly, doing the footwalk and it slides a little bit off. So if I just like accounted for the slide and overshot, it worked perfectly almost every time. And then you're set up on those two and you just look up and you're like, all right, I'm going to jump to this weird, slotted, slippery crimp now. And honestly, a lot of people are pretty particular where they hit that one. Like I know Ethan goes fully on all the spikes on the side, and Adam went more or less full downpull. For me, it was kind of like since I was doing the double clutch, I could kind of get away with doing whatever. What ended up happening was I basically double clutched off the full downpull to the basically finger bucket on the lip. But I've done it a few different ways.
Dude, Austin, hearing you describe that just makes me realize that I don't know shit about climbing and I have not gone deep enough in hard projects because this idea of three different hand positions that you experimented with on that, like when I think of that, so I don't have as much experience on lucid, but I've just kind of fondled and thought about it, but like, I just remember it being like an aggressive tooth that you kind of just, I don't know, it just never even crossed my mind to like try those three different positions. And then this idea that you would grab the pinch too high and that because of the footwalk afterwards, you were going to slide on it and then you would slide into the best part. Fascinating, man. Actually, can you did a great job at describing the undercling shark tooth, a great job at describing that crimp you jumped to. Can you tell me more about that pinch?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I can't. I guess that's kind of like the hold, so that makes sense. Yeah, I kind of glazed over it, but I think that's the coolest hold maybe in Bishop, maybe in the. It's one of the coolest holds in the world, in my opinion. I mean, like the way that it just forms. It's like you get this perfectly sized mini pinch for your hand, and the left part where all your four fingers are, it's kind of like this like faint U almost. Like a faint U that goes out. And the thumb, there's a few thumb grips. You can go super high on the thumb, or you can kind of go like in line with your middle finger on the thumb, I guess is kind of what I would say. I know Zach, ooh, I think Zach goes super high on the thumb, but I'm pretty sure me and Adam went pretty in line with the middle finger, like average on the thumb. But yeah, it's like maybe 1/4 of a pad. It's a little bit in cut. It's more in cut than you expect, but it's not in cut. There's basically one part that makes sense to grab. There's like a little point that you put your pointer on, and then all the other fingers kind of fall into place from there. But if you grabbed it a little too low, it'd probably be way harder. But if you tried to do the jump off of the high grip, it'd probably be way harder. So when you grab it a little high and allow yourself to slide into it, you're kind of setting yourself up in the best possible way to just like be locked in, like if you just if you're like mentally allow yourself to know you're gonna slide, but it's gonna work out, then I think you're allowing yourself to like not send, but like be set up too.
Can you tell me more about the texture too? Because I think that's one of the things that makes it special.
Yeah, I mean the lack of there's like none. It's when I think Daniel was described it as like a 1/4 pad glassy mini pinch, and it's still I mean it holds it is a 1/4 pad glassy mini pinch. It has no texture. Uh, it's basically like if you're grabbing a hold in the gym. Say there's a dual text hold in the gym that has a lot of chalk on it. You can kind of grab it. It has more grip than just dual text, but it doesn't have any like noticeable grip. You're just squeezing. It's almost like a wooden hold.
I think the thing that always blew my mind about Lucid is that I have gone up and gotten into the start position of Rastaman Vibration, which is the V12 stand, we'll say. Kind of need to stack some pads there. And I get on there and I've never even tried to pull on, but I'm like, okay, there's a hold here. This pinch, like you get some good conditions. You kind of like, okay, like I get it. But I think what always was a little bit of a mystery to me, I'd love to hear how it felt for you, is that there's one thing about pulling on when everything you find the perfect little crystal
Hmm.
and you're like your body's up, your chest is up. your shoulders down, and you're in
Yeah.
that position where you kind of just keep that uh keep that still, right? You're like, okay, I find a position, and then you don't really plan on moving your elbow or your shoulder or your wrist. You kind of just hold it there and then move your body around it. What's it like doing that move when you have to stick it from the bottom? Like, how does that feel?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a whole different ball game for sure. Because I think doing the move to the pinch in ISO probably is. I mean, maybe the move to the pinch isn't V12 like how I say it is, but I think like from the bottom, sticking the move to the pinch and walking the feet and feeling good enough to jump is 100% just as hard as doing the jump. And I think that's something that people don't like take into consideration a lot. Like, because you can hit it almost perfectly and be a millimeter off, but that's going to change everything. Because the second you slide in a tiny different way than you're used to, you're just going to slip, or you don't have enough pressure going through it. Like you said, when you pull onto the wall, you can, from the stand, you can squeeze it knowing you're squeezing as hard as you can and pull on and jump. And you probably won't dry fire. But from the bottom, you can hit the pinch, walk the feet, and then subconsciously, like, squeeze a little less hard and then jump and flip. Like, there's so many different factors that come into play to, I think, doing that move and holding that pinch from the ground. It's like even hard for me to understand, even though I spent so much time on the boulder.
Yeah. It really was mind blowing to me when that got put up, and it was such a hard block. I mean, it still is a well, it hasn't changed. It's still an incredibly hard block despite amazingly hard, strong climbers doing it. And I just this concept of going from a pretty positive undercling, like that tooth, it's not good. It's not jug, but it's a hold.
No, yeah, I would say when I first showed up, all the holds were like a little better. I think that's something that people would be surprised by too. Like the holds are really not as bad as everyone else makes them sound. You know what I mean? Like
Except for the pinch, dude. I disagree.
yes,
The pinch
yeah, okay,
is yeah.
that's fair. I'll give you that. But like the undercling, all the crimp you jump to, like yeah, they're weird and bad, but they're not like I don't know. They're not micro. They're like you said, it's like a half pad undercling almost. Like that's pretty good for a V15. I feel like.
Yeah, I guess to finish that thought, it was just this idea of going from the undercling and getting that pinch made sense to me. And starting from the pinch and the undercling and having that kind of better body position made sense. Walking the feet through and getting that pinch in a manner that would allow you to jump kind of didn't like it's funny how if you went, this is like that whole problem with breaking down a boulder. Okay, this is a V12 move. Okay, this move maybe V12, but it's like that's not the part. It's like the between. It's linking those moves and getting the body position between those moves that really is the hard thing putting it together.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's something different I did this season. I kind of focused on doing that two move link right away. I was like, it's kind of in my head, it's like almost stupid to try to do the two move link because the first two moves aren't anything, right? For like lack of a better word. But I knew if I did the two move link, my body would just like understand everything more. And I've gotten so close to doing the entire climb from the ground so many times, but there's just something different to sticking the move to the page, walking the feet, and doing the jump, like sticking that. And I did that two move link for the first time ever this trip, basically my second day on it this year. And I was just like, okay, I can tell it's different this year. Like mentally, it's different. My body understands it better. And like everything's falling into place now.
All right, Austin, that was the best description of lucid dreaming and the breakdown. Seriously, that was really cool, really interesting. As
Thank
someone
you.
who's seen tons of videos, grabbed the holds, looked at it, fondled it, dreamed about it. I think that you did the best job of taking me there and helping me understand it. And so I want you to take me to the day you sent it.
Yeah. Firstly, thank you. I appreciate it. I spent a lot of time with it, so I'm glad I can do it justice. It's very magical. But yeah, the day I sent it, we rolled up 3 o'clock like usual. Start warming up. Goes into shade around 3:30, and I did my usual warm up, went to grandma, played on the wall a little bit. I don't really have a set warm up. I just kind of play on holds. I got my hang board. We did some hangs, and I worked. Then I pulled onto the jump, the pinch, did the jump move. I was like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good. I guess I'll chill, like hang out. Adam showed up. Adam was just hanging, supporting. He had done it a few days ago, and it was just like, yeah. I think the crew vibes. It was awesome. Salva was there. Everyone was there. Everyone that like just everyone was so supportive. I sat down for my first attempt, pulled onto the wall, and yeah, I actually remember pulling on and doing the first move into the undercling and thinking, okay, I actually don't have it perfectly right now, but that's okay. I don't need this hold perfectly. I'll just keep going. And I kept going, and that's when I realized I stuck the pinch a little high, did the footwalk and slid down, and I'm like in this position. I look up at the double clutch, and in my head I was just like, This is the attempt I am sending this boulder. Like right then I think I knew I was doing it. Like it kind of was just like never felt that good before, and I jumped, stuck the double clutch, and was like in it. I was like, holy shit, I'm in it. And then the slab, the slab's the slab. It's like not. I mean, I know they threw numbers around. It's probably like V2 or three. Like it's not hard. I climbed to like the jug on the slab and was just like I couldn't get the smile off my face. Like there was no screaming. I thought there would be a little bit of crying maybe. There was nothing. It was just pure smile. And then the best part was when Adam tried to throw me a chalk bag and he missed 2 times in a row. Couldn't even throw a chalk bag. So then some other guy threw the chalk bag to me. I got the chalk bag. I couldn't really clip it around my waist, so I wore the chalk bag around my neck. And then it kind of obstructed my view of my feet. So I was kind of like peering around, pushing it. It was funny. But then, yeah, I got to the top and I turned around to like the most magnificent sunset I've ever seen in Bishop. It was these like perfectly wavy clouds and like the pinkest sky I've ever seen. It was insane. The only time I've ever seen a sunset that maybe matched that was in Africa. And I don't know, being able to like I don't know, live in that moment and like be on top of the boulder. Like it's like 3 seasons of effort culminating into one moment, and everyone that I like care about to an extent, not everyone, but they're all there watching. They're all like yelling, My girlfriend's down there like almost crying. Like the sky is amazing. It was kind of like a picture perfect moment. It felt like, and I didn't even want to scream. I didn't even want to do anything. I just wanted to sit up there and take it in and like appreciate that all the work I put in and all the time I spent on it and everything like paid off, and I was there and I did it, and it was like awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I love that Salvo was there too after you had texted him, in the beginning of the journey. And I think when he posted a picture, he said something like "perfect moment for Austin." Yeah, yeah. I think that everyone felt similarly to how you just described it.
That's yeah. Yeah, it was awesome being there with him too. Like, because I mean he's fucking. I mean I won't spray for him, but he's close on it too, and like just like everyone, and then like coming down and Adam giving me a hug, and it's like two fucking comp kids from New Jersey that grew up together, just fucking did Lucid Dreaming. And in my head, I was like, that's crazy. Like, I would have never expected me and Adam to basically go back to back on one of like the sickest hard climbs in the world. Like, I don't know. I'm like stumbling over all my words. I'm saying like a lot now too. Like, it was perfect. It was a great moment, and everyone that was there was awesome. I couldn't have asked for. It was just as good, if not better, than I expected in a completely different way.
That's awesome, man. When I did the pod with Adam, it came up like talk before he had done it and you had done it, and I was kind of ribbing him about doing it before you, or just
Yeah, I
like,
remember that.
but that's like, I don't know. I
No,
love
that's
that
how we are.
yeah, well, I love that started so young, it's, there's something really cool about it. And yeah, I mean, maybe it is surprising how far you've come, but you guys are both young, and I'm sure when we have this chat again in 10 years, it'll be like, and then we did this. Although, to be honest, those special moments, like the one you just described, they are few and far between. And it's cool to hear that it made such an impact on you. And the last thing I'll say is the picture. It was a beautiful sunset, and I just feel like you can never do it justice. Standing on top of Grandpa Peabody and those pink and orange sunsets with the snow-capped mountains looming over you, it is
It's like a painting.
special. Mm.
It's like you're standing in a painting. It's ridiculous.
I don't want to get too philosophical and out there on this stuff, but this is what I like about climbing is that there's this physicality, there's this this training aspect, and you get strong and then you have a peak moment, but there's something about doing it in these beautiful places where it somehow like integrates you into it versus like, oh, I took a picture of the sunset and it was pretty. It's like, I
Yeah.
don't know, you're somehow like deeply part, like that boulder, and now you
Hmm.
had a moment with it and there's a sunset. It's somehow like, I think that's why those are a little more peak experiences, is like you're somehow part of that beautiful landscape instead of just taking a picture of it.
Yeah, I fully agree. Yeah, 100%.
Fuck yeah, Austin. Congrats, dude.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It means a lot.
Is there anything else we should say about like the 1-2 method? Like we kind of covered in the beginning. I just thought it was dope. Again, it's like when you jump from the pinch and the undercling into the crimp, and then you pull through to a finger bucket. I don't know. Anything else we should
I
say
mean,
about that, do you think?
I kind of have a funny story of the first time I stuck it. Like I was telling you, I was with Keenan and Katie, but also Sean Bailey was there. He was like Miho had just sent Buttermilker, and they walked over and they were just chatting to Keenan and everything. And when I stuck the double clutch for the first time, I have this on video. You can hear Sean just like freak out. He was like, "What the fuck? That was like the sickest thing ever!" So that was pretty cool. But I don't know. I don't. I think there's not like it's like I think there's not much to it in a way. Like it's there, and when you look at it, it kind of makes sense. You know, the crimp is right here, and the hold I double clutch to is right here. It's almost like it makes sense. Like you can almost just double like it. You're almost set up perfectly for it, and that's kind of how Ross explained it to me that first time he saw it. He was like, "Dude, like it's almost meant for it."
This is what's interesting about new technologies, new techniques, new vision, Northeast Vision. Well, Ross
Ross
Vision's
vision.
Ross Vision. He's got some vision.
Yeah.
Is that it's obvious once you see it, but it's not like, dude, this was again historically like a very simple power block that you could not cheat.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I do not think it's cheating how you did it, by any stretch of the imagination. But it's just fascinating to me to see climbing evolve like that. It's one thing even to like see it; it's another to do it,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
that gets the ball rolling. And my question for you, if you were a betting man, do you think in 10 years, what do you think the split would be of people doing Lucid, the method that you just did in versus the classic method?
That's a good question. If you would have asked me this like a few months ago, I would have said I think more people will start doing the double clutch. But I thought Zach would like the double clutch way, and it sounds like he feels more. Again, sorry Zach if I'm but it sounds like he feels more confident in just owning the original way. Like he's more than good enough to own that, you know? Like so I honestly I don't know. I wish I could give you a better answer than I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if more people came and did the double clutch. But at the same time, I think Lucid is one of those boulders, and I was gonna get to this too. I think the style of climbing is changing in a way where like people are just gonna be able to own Lucid and own the process. And climbs like Buttermilk or Golden Standard are gonna become the ones that don't get a lot of a sense because it's how it goes. Like no one's gonna be good at that face crimping style anymore. They're all gonna be good at 50-degree crimp pulling.
Interesting. So let me repeat this back to you and see if I understand it. So what you're saying is that the generation or like newer climbers climbers coming up now will have more time on boards most likely, and they will develop the kind of strength that is showcased on Lucid in the traditional style. So they won't even necessarily need to do, a kind of a trick or maybe a more
Yeah.
efficient, higher risk way, because they're likely, if they're going to seek out that boulder and be capable of that boulder, it's probably easier for them to just showcase their strength and not even mess around with, like potentially a more efficient but more risky way of doing it.
Yeah, I more or less, and maybe I'll eat my words 10 years down the line. Like maybe Lucid is a lot harder than I think it is. And I know it's hard. I know it's really hard, but maybe all this stuff is just like maybe it's so different. Maybe it's not comparable and whatever. But I do think that these tension board kids that are climbing V13 and 2 attempts on the tension board, like can one arm any hold on the tension board, like there is no reason besides experience, tactics and stuff and like understanding body movement that they shouldn't be able just to do something like the process or lucid in my opinion.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll be curious to see. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like that the option is there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you've done the move both ways. What made you decide to, when giving send burns, lean towards the double clutch?
Yeah, I did the move both. I actually did the move normally just as the jump obviously first. And then yeah, I think when I actually ended up giving send burns, it was a really hard decision to make because at a certain point I felt just as good on the normal way as I did on the double clutch. I was like, I can own it both ways from Rostaman. I can do it both ways almost every try. But from the ground, I don't know because I can't do it either way from the ground yet. But I think what I settled on when I settled on the double clutch, it was because in my head, it's actually higher percentage in a way because I give myself less time to like dry fire on the pinch. Like if I held the swing all the way out to here and then on the swing back in I dry fire, there's no way I'm holding that one arm. So if I can just like grab the crimp and then be like, okay, I'm going to the jug now. I get off the pinch as soon as possible. Like the time of slippage is way less and maybe I'm thinking about it backwards, but that's how my brain saw it and it ended up working out. So
I mean, this is what makes climbing so cool, is that you're basically saying, I don't love that pinch. I can't maybe own it as well as some other climbers. And so I think it's going to be riskier for me to have to spend more time on it and do more moves that require me to count on it staying. So here's another way. And just, yeah, dude, this is why, I don't know. It's so interesting. Again, I'll just say again, so interesting how here's a block that is like, not only is this idea of like there's no tricks, and he's talking
mhm.
about heel hooks, drop knees, but in some ways there's also like this idea of there's no other way, right? It's just
Yeah,
like can you do this or not, like
a
this?
hundred
Here's the
percent.
foot, here's the hand. Good luck, guys. And then it's like, it may have been one of the best examples of that I can think of in the hard climb world. And then it's like, oh, really? Maybe not. And I just
Maybe
find
not.
that fascinating, dude. I just blew my mind and loved seeing it go all the way through. Congrats again. Perfect moment. Good sunset. Gotta text the boys. So cool, dude.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it all. It was definitely like one of the best moments ever. Just in my life in general. I mean, there's a lot of special moments in my life, but like that one definitely will live on.
Looking forward to the video. I'm glad
So
we
yeah,
had a little context behind the scenes on it.
yeah, yeah,
And so, Austin, I'm gonna ask you my question I ask everyone, and
yeah,
that's, how do you go from good to great?
yeah. I've been thinking about this actually the last few days a good amount, and I had two answers, but I think I'm gonna settle on one, and I think it is mindset. It's kind of similar to what Adam said in a way, but my mindset is a little different than his in my opinion. Like I don't know. I think it's just like try, just try, go out and try. Just because it is bad conditions outside, just because it is way too hot, just because you don't think you're gonna send today. just try. Because you're not gonna send if you don't. You know, like when we did our first V13s in the Northeast, it was the middle of summer, it was humid, but we went out and tried, and we were like, oh, it goes. Like we can do this. You're only gonna get stronger. It's only gonna push you mentally more. You're only gonna learn more from it. There's nothing bad about going out and just trying, even when you don't think it's worth it.
How do you deal with those days when you try and you get your ass kicked, and then you're optimistic and you come out and you try again and you get your ass kicked? You know, how do you keep getting your ass kicked and keep telling yourself that, oh, I'm just going to still show up and do my best?
I think the biggest thing in that regard is just seeing the big picture. Like with Lucid, I got my ass kicked for 3 seasons, basically, you know? And every time I'd go home and be like, I drove here. I would drive home and have 4 days of thinking about it, driving home. I never thought, for once, there was never a moment where I was like, I'm never going back. I'm not going back. The whole drive, I was like, how am I gonna make it make sense to go back next year and try again? I think just being able to see the big picture, and if you're doing it for the right reasons, then I think getting your ass kicked is kind of fun in a way. Like, yeah, I wasn't climbing on Lucid so I can post it on Instagram, you know? Like if I was doing that, I probably would hate getting my ass kicked for 3 seasons. And maybe it did start off as that, but it didn't finish as that. At the end of the day, I was doing it. It's like, okay, now I got to prove this to myself. And if you're just doing it to prove something to yourself, why not just try? Because maybe you'll prove it to yourself on a hot, humid day, and then you're like, well, obviously I could do more.
Good stuff, man. I also, the other thing that stood out to me during this chat that I'm going to remember is climb it all because it's fun and
Hmm.
add to that movement repertoire and enjoy, enjoy the block. Austin, we're on like a side thread. We're talking with a bunch of other, climbers about star ratings and all this stuff. But there's something to be said, there is that snobby thing, and we can have that conversation about what's
Yeah,
good and what's not. But boy, when we first started climbing in some stupid gym on a VB ladder at a birthday party, like tapping into that joy and just climbing everything is kind of the kernel how we all begin, and so I think there's something there that I want to remind myself when I'm out in Bishop and maybe my
for
proj is
sure.
in the sun, and it's just like, dude, go have fun. Like there's a lot of blocks to climb, whether they're 1-star V zeros or 5-star, V double
Yeah.
digits.
Yeah, I think I mean, if you're gonna spend all this, if you're gonna, I mean, I guess it's a little different for a weekend warrior or someone who doesn't have a long trip versus me. So I do understand that. I guess I could see that way. It would be hard to go and do shit on a day where you don't wanna. But like you said, if your project's in the sun and you're like, well, it would be if you're not willing to just try on it in the sun, you might as well go try on something in the shade that you're gonna learn from, because as long as you're trying, you're learning.
I mean, when I met you, uh, I was supposed to climb on my mega proj with our buddy Will Fraker, and I don't know if Bryce Viola was going to hop on it with us, but then it was kind of sunny, it was kind of hot, and we were just like, let's go this thing in the shade. I was scanner darkly. I had a
Uh-huh.
blast, man. I just had an
Yeah.
absolute blast.
Hell yeah.
Just so much fun with the boys. Okay, Austin, I know you're going to eventually go back Northeast. It seems like you may wait it out until the process gets ticked, which I have full faith in you.
Thank you.
And I just ask that you come on when you do that V17, which I think you're talking. The V17 project that starts the same as Big Bad
Uh-huh.
Wolf, the V15 FA in that roof. I think you're calling it the Fairy Tale Project. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I think I landed on the fairy tale proj.
Good name,
I,
dude.
yeah, I kind of yeah. Siri helped my girlfriend helped me pick that one out. So
Well, if you have the desire, go do it and make a video and come on and tell me more about it.
oh, I will be happy to.
All right, enjoy that luxurious silk robe and your Four Seasons penthouse. And maybe I'll see you next week, dude.
Yeah, thank you. And before we leave, do you mind if I shout out a few things real quick?
Please.
Yeah. I just wanted to shout out Beta Labs, which is a company that I basically am owner of in the Northeast. That we make chalk bags. My dad and I started it together. We have been working on a bunch of new prototypes, so keep an eye out for that. Shout out Mad Rock. I am super psyched to be on their team. What else? Shout out Decoy Climbing Holes. He's the homie. Best board in the game. I'll say that. That's all I'll say. I'll leave it there. It's good. Tension board too, and decoy board. You have them next to each other. You're set. Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was super fun. I'm glad I could spray about the Northeast a little bit. I think I was a little all over the place on it, but come check it out. If you want to come check it out, shoot me a message. Just yeah, info's kind of hard to come by on the Northeast sometimes. So yeah, feel free to shoot me a message. I'll reply.
Ooh, I like that. That's someone who cares about the community. I also want to shout out your YouTube channel one more time. It's V's V-E-E-E-Z.
V-E-E-Z. Two E's.
Two E's.
Two
Okay.
E's.
Okay.
Climb V's.
And I didn't know about Beta Labs and that's your company. We'll link it all in
Yeah.
the show notes. And yeah, man, good times. Good luck in the process.
Thank you. I'm psyched to keep processing. So.
And good luck on Fairy Tale Project.
Yeah.
I want to see it go down. But
All right,
man.
deal. I'll do an update video.
Sounds good. All right, take care, dude.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like even more content, go to patreon.com/testpiece. And while you're at it, share this podcast with someone you know who would love it. And please leave us a review or rating at wherever you get your podcasts. We've also got tons of great content on YouTube and Instagram, so don't forget to like and subscribe there. Okay, see you next week.